90% of searches happens on Google as per 2025, which means that visibility on search is still the main gateway to businesses to be found nowadays. And if people can't find you on search, that means that you're actually not part of their buying journey. Now, I'm happy to have today with me James. He's the founder and CEO of SEO Sherpa, one of the region's largest SEO agencies. Has been in the business for more than 13 years, and with more than 50 specialists and experts working in it, and has been awarded multiple times as one of the region's largest SEO agencies, or the number one largest SEO agency. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to break down practices and habits that anyone can apply in order to get the most out of their SEO without the need to be technical or super into coding things. So yeah, James, welcome to Reach for Growth.
Thanks for having me. Absolute pleasure to be here today.
Yeah, so James, let's start a little bit with your expertise. What led you to start your own agencies, the story?
Well, I found SEO by accident. I think a lot of us get into this like agency and marketing space, through some sort of form of synchronicity or luck. My background was running a photography company. That's nice. What I did for basically 10 years prior to that. It was my only job. And that really led me into like sales and marketing in general. So for that studio, I looked after all of like the acquisition side of the business. So no taking photographs, no creativity. I was literally the person leading acquisition and then general management. And then through that, I got a passion for marketing in general, human psychology, direct response, all these sorts of things. And then eventually in about 2009, give or take, when sort of digital was very much emerging in this region, I got introduced to a collective of people that were essentially making all of their money online, doing digital marketing, affiliates, like traffic arbitrage stuff. Classic, working from the beach with their laptop, making millions. And I thought, I want some of that. And that took me down a path of really starting to understand like online traffic generation. Various other things occurred around that time where essentially I was sort of, let's say, pushed out of that job that I was in. And then the thing that was very much top of mind for me at that point was this new concept of digital marketing and how I could leverage it. So I left that photography company business and then started my own consultancy. And the consultancy to begin with was very much a general digital marketing consultancy. So it wasn't necessarily at that point specialized in SEO. It was a little bit of website development, social media, and really anything that I could sell to clients that would buy it at that stage. But then during the very sort of early period of that consultancy, I just really fell in love with this whole discipline of search engine optimization. And I think I fell in love with it because it is a real balance of like data-driven optimizations, so like left brain thinking, and then also a certain aspect of like creative marketing, which is right brain thinking. And that's really me in a nutshell. I think I'm really balanced between these two spheres, which is not necessarily that common. SEOs themselves tend to find themselves more in like the technical side or the creative side. I was very much a combination of both of those things. So it appealed to me very much. And then as a service, I've been very much used to in my photography days of really having to sell like month over month to generate new customers. And I love the concept from a business perspective with SEO is that when I could get clients, they would sign up and they would stay on with a retainer, they'd remain with me for a long time. So it balanced both of those two things. And yeah, that was really 2010, I guess, when I sort of really fell into SEO. The agency, SEO Sherpa, was officially born in 2012. So to your point, yeah, it's been nearly 13 plus years now of being at the coalface of SEO and brick by brick building an agency that's a reasonable size these days.
Yeah, and I found it actually very fascinating to have an agent because from my expertise, especially a lot of the agencies that start here, like start in the UAE or in Dubai, they are not global agencies. You found them actually struggle after maybe year 3, 4, 5. But the fact is that SEO Sherpa now has been in business for 13 years. It's a big win, that in my opinion. And I wanted to learn more about like this chapter of your life with SEO Sherpa? Like, if you can give a summary of it.
As in the chapter right now?
Yeah, like the past 13 years.
Oh gosh, I mean, the past 13 years has been a roller coaster. And I think most people in business for that length of time would describe it very much like that, right? You're going to have your highs and you're going to have your lows. But generally speaking, you know, we've maintained growth over that 13-year period. We have, of course, gone through various different iterations. So the agency, when it started, was a very simple model. It was essentially what I would describe as a middleman model. So I would go out and find clients, and then I had a partner who then delivered the work, which was essentially a white labeled wholesale partner. I would find the clients, I would rely on a trustworthy service to deliver it. I would sort of sandwich myself between the client and the service provider as the middleman, and I'd make a profit. And that's how I got started. Then I grew very quickly and got to a point within the space of, I think, 3 years, where I'd become the largest customer of that outsourced supply agency. So in a really nice turn of events, I then bought that agency and then rolled it up internally.
Nice.
So then we vertically integrated. So that was a really nice sort of period of like hockey stick growth. One was like we acquired a large team. So we went from maybe 8 people to like 28 overnight. So it was a nice growth of like team, but then also really nice profit growth, because now we vertically integrated, our profit margins increased, and then that allowed us to scale on. We've then sort of grown sort of in-house. We took the team then up to, you know, plus 50. And really the stage that we're in now is that we are both diversifying in terms of our regions and our global reach, and we're also diversifying in terms of the services that we offer, which is somewhat aligned to how search is trending, in that it's no longer just Google SEO, but search engine optimization in general, and that now includes many, many platforms. So we'll probably get into some of those topics in today's conversations. But there's been a real big evolution in our industry, and we're trying to be at the forefront of that, develop out new service offerings, widen our sort of skill set, widen our reach, and that's really like current phase of SEO Sherpa right now.
Awesome. And based on your experience, if I asked you, what is the main misconception that people get about search in general? Like, you worked with a lot of clients. I guess there is one misconception that you can find constant across all clients.
The one that's top of mind at the moment would be that Google search is dead. Everyone has this assumption, perhaps because of their own browsing habits, that all search is shifting to AI because they're used to using ChatGPT and other platforms like that. That is actually not the case. So what we are seeing right now is that Google search is increasing. So year over year, 2023 to 2024, because we don't have 2025 data yet, total Google search query volume increased by 5%. So usage is up and on the rise. Counter to that, interestingly, whilst AI search had a really strong initial surge, it's now plateaued. So there's been a leveling out of the number of prompts that are happening on IA platforms and the amount of traffic they send. So it's actually almost counter to what people think. Google search continues to rise, and there's been somewhat of a leveling out across AI. So what I would say is actually truer to what is really happening right now is a diversification of platforms and an expansion of what we describe SEO Sherpa as being the search universe. So now people are searching more frequently, but also in more places. And that's not just Google, it's AI, it's social search engines, it's vertical search engines like Amazon, YouTube, and many, many other places. Essentially, people are searching more often in more places. That's basically where we're at right now.
Yeah, I guess, and my personal opinion here is that as the new technology happening, and as we as human tend to think more into linear kind of ways, that something will grow, the other thing will die. But we don't understand really how a new technology and very complicated technology such as LLMs and AI is going to impact a usage of human behavior. And I thought about this for quite some time, and I guess my realization is this: the people that says SEO is going to die, they don't mean specifically Google. They mean the old practices of SEO or of optimization that we used to do in the past. Because it's very fast nowadays that, and now Google can actually do some changes to their algorithm to impact how things go up, and totally change the game. And one case study that comes to mind that happened early this year, I believe it's HubSpot, how they lost a lot of their organic traffic overnight because one of the practices that they were doing in the past, which was actually rewarding them with a lot of organic traffic, has totally shifted.
Yep.
Google decided to switch it overnight, and that's and I guess they did this because they've seen this is very competitive, that maybe ChatGPT or any other player they wanted to do, and they wanted to match it with their AI overview.
Yeah.
So I believe the game is, in this essence, I guess we can consider that there is a new era of search that people need to approach it with an open mind.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and your observation is totally right. I think what's probably important to mention, though, all Google is doing is following user behavior. And user behavior now is that people don't now want to go and read 5,000 word long blog posts. They want to get to information more quickly. And if these AI models can summarize and extrapolate information from multiple sources, give it to people in a more consumable format at the top of SERPs, then that's what we as marketers have to adapt to. You know, we can't expect the old ways of working to continually be the same because user habits start to shift. So that's exactly what happened with HubSpot. I mean, they were the classic exponents of inbound marketing. I mean, they were the
number one always. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I think you also have to be kind of mindful looking at them as a case study as to what they were optimizing around, right? So their idea or premise was to capture as much top of funnel traffic as possible.
Yeah.
And sometimes that top of funnel traffic would be almost irrelevant to their business model. You know, they were ranking for almost anything in the very, very wide general digital marketing space, and honestly much beyond that. So you'd have to question how valuable was that traffic. What we understand now from HubSpot as a case study is their commercial numbers have not declined. So what that tells us was they were generating a whole lot of visibility that actually was probably pretty worthless to the business because it wasn't converting into actual revenue. So it's interesting, you know.
Yeah, true. Like we can discuss more about it, but also like it's very interesting that you looked into it this way because one of the things that I noticed that they acted super quickly. They start letting people go, some of the team, of course, and all of that, which can impact their commercial numbers not be impacted a lot. But yeah, you are 100% correct when it comes to their strategy. It was try to focus more onto the top of the funnel and even beyond the top of the funnel, thing that's not relevant.
Yeah.
But I guess that the my worry is, as someone who's into digital marketing, is if it can happen with this way, it can happen to any other rule that the businesses used to optimize for. If it used to happen, like for example, yeah, of course they were going beyond the line of 100%.
Yeah.
But what if the situation shifted overnight for any other rule that people are now taking it for granted? What will be the situation then?
Yeah, I mean, you probably found yourself in the same scenarios, and we laugh a little bit within the SEO space because for a long time we would have brands that we would work with very much fixated on ranking position. So where do I appear for a certain set of keywords or an individual term? And we would try to say to them, look, it's not about that because ranking positions shift. It's highly personalized. Really what you should care about is who's coming to your website. In other words, the traffic. Now we're trying to say to them, look, traffic doesn't matter. It's actually what visibility you're getting and ultimately how that visibility within search results, whether it's on Google or within AI or anywhere else that search may happen, how is that influencing the buyer behavior, to your point in the introduction. So I think all of us as vertical experts need to take a step back and go, what are we trying to achieve here? And what we're ultimately trying to achieve is to influence consumer behavior in the favor of our brand or the brands that we're working with. And that consumer behavior is going to shift, like how people interact with content, where they interact. We've ultimately got to be able to influence that as much as possible, where it's appropriate, of course, in order to drive exposure and ultimately revenue for the brands, and some of that is going to also become more difficult to track, right, as we move through into less first party data and so on and so forth. But ultimately, I think all of us as vertical experts need to become much better general brand marketers and understand how all of these concepts work together, because none of it's in isolation, right?
100%,
none of it's in isolation.
100%. No, actually, I really love that. Yeah. And now, from my experience, I found the biggest misconception is about the expectation of SEOs. Like, there is a lot of kind of memes about how SEOs takes a lot of time. Yeah. A lot of people that works in SEO, like, you cannot expect anything to change. Give me 6 months.
Yeah.
Give me 4 months. Give me 3 months. But when I discussed with you, even before this podcast, you were actually telling me that there are kind of practices that can be implemented and can have very fast impact.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, things can happen very slowly, but also they can happen quickly as well, depending on where a website starts, what it's up against. But if we're smart, we can accelerate some of that process to, gain results much faster than typically would be expected. Yeah. So do you want to get into some techniques and
let's what would
strategies?
be the easiest practice that it's not technical that people can do that actually can improve their search visibility?
Okay, the one I like the most, because it's a little bit left field and people don't think about, is essentially buying search real estate. So in the same way as you would go and buy a property, if you want to get exposure for your brand, you might go and place yourself on the, the highly trafficked high street. You can do the same thing with SEO, right? So what you can essentially discover is who is ranking already and how can I get featured within that content. And we call this strategy, if you want to call it that. We call it within SEO like the barnacle strategy. Essentially like a barnacle attaching yourself to what's already ranking to gain that visibility immediately. So in basic form, go and have a look at what is already ranking in your market and then see if you can determine pages or websites that you can get yourself featured on that are already ranking in the top spots. So that could be things like list posts. It can be like directories, right? Within our market, things like Clutch and those other places typically rank very, very well. And that strategy very often is a pay-to-play exercise, right? So you can approach a site and say, how much would it be to feature me within that content? Really great way to go about it, because even if you then also rank your own site, then not only do you have one piece of real estate on the first page, but now you've got 2, and if you're doing many other things, you might have multiple. We can talk about that a bit later. The second one, which I really like, is like what we call like the moving man method, which is essentially going to site owners who've already got a piece of content that's ranking, and then you just buy it from them.
You actually buy the exact piece of content.
Yeah. So you would, let's say in like your case, you wanted to rank for like, I don't know,
performance marketing.
Okay, so you go and see what's ranking top for performance marketing. Maybe you'll discover that within that there's a really nice long form, guide on performance marketing best practices. You can then go to that site owner and go, hey, how much would it be for me to buy that content from you? If you can broker a deal. You shift that content to your own website, maybe updating it and changing it and branding it to be your own, but essentially keeping the same content. And then you arrange for that original piece of content to be redirected to your own site. And in doing so, you use directives that tell Google that the content is moved, and then they pass all ranking signals from its original location to the new location, and literally overnight you will rank. And now you've bypassed probably what would have taken months, maybe even years in some instances, and you've gained that. So you'll see, this is actually a big play that a lot of brands are going through now. You'll see a lot within our marketing space actually now doing like big content acquisitions. So SEMrush is a platform that you'll be very familiar with, you probably use. You'll notice that they're going around and they're buying content assets. They bought Backlinko, they bought Search Engine Journal. They're basically going around and buying content assets and then rolling them up into their own brand. You can do the same thing even if you're a small player. Maybe not at site level, might be more expensive, but you can certainly do it at an individual page level if you're smart about it. Yeah.
And I guess this is very smart, and I'm really fascinated with the mindset shift that it's not, and I'm thinking about it from maybe an SEO specialist or as someone who's leading marketing and SEO is one of those, that like it's not thinking about SEO as kind of practices that I'm going to do to achieve a result, but like actually thinking it holistically, more about dominating a certain field or a certain keywords. And then you try to think about it in a creative way. How can I acquire, or how can we work together, and instead of just competing endlessly on the ranking? And I guess this is very smart. Yes.
Yeah.
But how would you choose in terms of the right keyword? Like, do you go for the most competitive or relevant keywords first, or maybe less competitive? Because it has to have some kind of strategy when it comes to choosing or prioritizing the keywords that you would like to start if I want to do it from day one. How would you think about that?
Yeah, so there is a few factors that you probably want to have a think about. So, one is the competition, one is the opportunity size, and then the third one that a lot of people really don't think about then is the business alignment. So the business case for the keyword. So I mean, typically, and I say keyword loosely because actually when we think about our research and strategy, we're really not thinking at a keyword level. We're thinking at a topic level. So how do we become known? How do we provide the best content on a specific or even general topic that could include many different keywords or search queries that are performed in order to find an asset that would then answer those queries, right? So people search in different ways, essentially. We want to make sure that we're relevant in all ways that they do search. So some metrics that you may want to have a look at, firstly would be just search volume in general. So rather than looking at search volume for the individual keyword, generally what I would do is look at the traffic volume for the page that's currently ranking top. So it's the search traffic potential, because what that incorporates is not just the number of searches for that one individual keyword, but all of the related keywords around it that page then ranks for. So if you see pages with high search traffic potential, you know that if you can rank number one for that topic also, then you too have a high potential of generating a lot of traffic. And the second one would be the level of competition. And you might need some SEO tools sometimes to really get into the nitty gritty of this. But ultimately, I think just looking with the naked eye, we can tell a lot. The sites that are ranking currently in those positions, are they really established, well-known brands? Are you up against big players? Because if you are up against big players, the level of competition is going to be higher, and it's going to be more difficult for you to often sort of get into the upper ranking positions, right? So essentially you want high search traffic potential, and ideally you want low competition, and then you want high business alignment. So just a simple way that we do this internally is we score each topic from 1 to 4. So 4 would be perfectly describes what my business does, and I have the perfect product or service to actually answer that search query. Number 3 would be some business alignment, but not a perfect match, right? Number 2 would be moderate, and then number 1 would be no alignment at all. So you might find that something's got high traffic potential, low competition, but if it doesn't align with your business objectives, going back to our example of HubSpot earlier, what's the point? So if you go through those sorts of scoring, then you should then be able to come up with a sort of prioritized list of topics that you may want to go after.
Yeah, awesome. Actually, this is very useful. So ideally now, I guess this is something that any business can implement and see improvement when it comes to their research. They don't need to wait for 6 months, because once they do the redirect, the visibility and the traffic and the ranking will start happening almost immediately.
Yep.
And I think it's very useful. And I guess the point when it comes to giving the highest factor to the business relevance, it's very important, because at the end of the day, the goal is not just ranking or visibility for the sake of visibility. We want to, and I really like also this about SEO Sherpa, that actually it's a conversion first agency in a way, that we want to drive a business goal, and this is why we do the visibility that we want to achieve.
Yeah,
it's not just for the sake of visibility and be number one for a keyword that doesn't match to the business, but hey, look at the traffic. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
totally. Oh, that's nice. We all like bragging rights, but ultimately, any good marketing or branding activity, you want it to drive returns. That's ultimately what we're doing it for, generally speaking, in business, is to gain exposure that can drive revenue, so that everything is self-funding and liquidating, and it generates a ROAS, or just a general ROI. So you need to think about those things. And funnily enough, not everyone does. They just go after terms for term's sake sometimes.
Yeah. What are other practices that is similar to this one that you might consider that is fast and also gives relevant results to the business?
Yeah, there's tons. We could reel off a bunch. I would say one of the most overlooked that is really high impact would be internal linking. So when I say internal linking, I essentially mean linking from one page on your website to another page on your website. Why is that important? Well, it really helps to influence one of Google's primary ranking criteria, which is PageRank. So I should probably give some background to this. Yeah. This is, Google's original patent. It's what made Google successful over all of the other search engines, in that they used essentially a measure of the authority that's passed from one page to another in order to determine which pages have the highest trust and have the highest authority online. So, typically speaking, people think about linking in terms of external links. So from one website back to your own, often referred to as backlinks. And when you get more backlinks to your website or to your individual web pages, that essentially reinforces to Google that your site is trustworthy and therefore it should rank higher in the SERPs. You can essentially adopt that same model internally within your own website. So in short, if you get a lot of links, particularly from your highest authority pages on your website to a page that you want to rank, it reinforces to Google, this is an important page because it's got many links pointing to it, and therefore we should give it higher preference within the search results. Also really great for user experience because it keeps people on your site. It's also really great for crawling and indexing, which is Google's process of discovery, because if they've got links pointing between pages, they can discover all the content on your website. Very, very easy. So it has many applications. In practical sense, the way to go about this, which again, any one of our listeners can adopt, is look on Google for the topic that you want to win links from. Right. So let's use performance marketing again as an example. You could then type in speech marks on Google, performance marketing, and then your website, so site : and then your domain name. And then that will surface all of the times that you've mentioned performance marketing on your website. And then what you can go do is essentially click through each one of those pages and update each reference of the term performance marketing with a link through to your specific performance marketing page. And in turn, what that does is it passes the page rank, the authority that each one of those pages has, to your final destination URL. And it reinforces to Google that page is the definitive resource on your website about performance marketing, because all of the other pages are frequently referencing it with that context. It's such a hack. But it's a hack because it's also really good for user experience. If you imagine people browsing through your website and they're reading through the content and they say performance marketing, mentioned, they might go, well, what is performance marketing? I'd like to learn more about this topic. They can click on that link and go to the definitive, resource. Keeps people on site longer and many, many other applications. So I think that's probably one of the most overlooked.
But why it's overlooked?
I don't know. It's a good question. To be honest, why it's overlooked. I think probably sometimes people are just maybe guilty of putting up content, assuming that people can discover it through the main navigation and so on and so forth. And then ultimately what will happen naturally as a site grows is that content will fall deeper and deeper in the hierarchy because you've published pages and now it's like, let's say blog post, it's blog post number 38 and now it's really far down in your blog stream. It's kind of hidden away in the site. It could be a really great resource, but Google doesn't understand it's a great resource because it's basically hidden away. If you can just help guide search engines into knowing that is an important resource on your site, it really, really helps with your ranking performance.
Yeah, it makes sense. Also, one of the ways that I really like to see as a user when I'm searching on Google and I'm looking at the organic result, that some search results will have some kind of similar site links beneath each of those. But actually, when you try to talk with SEO people, some of them tell you this happens organically by Google. We don't know how to impact those, or how can we have those? How can we have those? Now the question to you: how can we have those kind of site links?
Yeah.
For our organic results.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is the sort of the deep links that sit within a Google SERP. All of the conventional Google search results will have the clickable title link, which is typically generated from the title tag, and we'll go through to the end URL. Sometimes, in very uncommon instances, not that frequently, you'll find then links beneath the main organic result with other links internally within that website, which look a lot like your sort of Google Ads results, where you've got those site link components, which you can of course set strategically within your Google Ads platform. So yeah, you can actually build those strategically within the content that you produce on the site. So one of the things that we make as standard practice at SEO Sherpa for our own content and that of our clients is whenever we're publishing informational content, such as content to their resources or blog section, and that content is long form, which is generally a good practice as well for search, we then add a table of contents within the post itself with internal jump links to different sections. So that would typically sit in like the sidebar, and it would have, let's say all of the 8 or 10 different topics will be covering that, and then you click on that and it will be an internal jump link to another section of the page. Those jump links typically form the URL structure of the actual URL itself, and then there'll be like a hashtag and then the actual, let's say, heading or the heading link that will be then contained there. All of those links themselves, those hashtag links, are also indexable. So when Google then is crawling that content, it understands that each of these subtopics are related to the core topic of the post. And then because it wants to actually offer a better user experience to its users, it will include relevant jump links in the main SERP itself, so that users then can find the section of the content that's most relevant to them and the search query that they've performed. So good for Google, really good for us. One, because it gives us more opportunity to actually win the click, because now we've maybe got 3, potentially even 4 URL links within our listing. But also what it does is it increases our real estate on the page, the Google SERP, which again, more prominence, more sort of, more visual real estate, which means that we're more likely to win the click in general. And again, all of that can be structured into your content practices if you decide to do it.
Yeah, 100%. Like from a Google Ads perspective, when you run this kind of site links into an ad, like you can expect 40% improvement in the CTR almost
Is that right?
immediately.
It's nuts, yeah.
And I can expect also the same. It can happen organically, because at the end of the day, if you are increasing the possibility to get more clicks into your organic results, this is going to give you a higher CTR for your organic results.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if you want to put this like practice on steroids, and again, it's a strategy that doesn't require any like fancy SEO tools or anything like that. For the main topic or keyword that you're targeting, just go down the search results and look at the people also ask section that features there. Those are the questions that people are asking before and after that search query. So the common questions pre and the common questions post. Now, you can expect that if someone is searching the keyword that you're targeting, those are the next questions that they're going to have. If you can then include that directly within your content and then include that as a jump link within your table of contents, you're basically giving the complete experience. And all of that information is hidden in plain sight in the Google search results if we decide to actually look for it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So basically you're saying on the search result page on Google, when you scroll down, you'll find also people ask questions. Include that into your piece of content, and then with the table of content hack that we talked about, you can actually add those into your organic search result in a way.
Yes.
And it will improve even the result even further.
Yes, exactly that. Yeah, spot on.
I really like that all of those like hacks or strategies that we're talking about does not require any kind of technical coding kind of integration.
Yes. Yeah, those are the best. Those are the best ones, because developers don't need to get involved. All of us as content marketers can, perform those sorts of, techniques and strategies. And I often refer to them as hacks, because they're kind of like, they're quick wins, but all of them are ultimately serving the search user, and that's why they're rewarded. So whilst they are quick and easy, it's not that we're trying to sort of hack or manipulate. We're actually just doing a really good job of giving a better user experience to users, which ultimately is what the search engine in general terms want to reward, right?
Yeah, you're basically optimizing for the human. You're not optimizing for the bots in a way. Like you're focusing more into the user experience, which will in turn will give a better user experience, be rewarded by bots, not starting from bots to optimize for.
Yes, yeah. And that's probably a good point to cover on as well. I mean, everyone's like, user first, and absolutely user first, but it's users and bots. You always need to think about both. But ultimately, if you understand what the bots are trying to do, is that they are trying to reward users, but you just need to make it easy for technology to understand that and then reward it. Yeah. But yeah, spot on.
What is one of the things that can actually prevent people from appearing or showing when it comes to AI search results from your experience?
Prevents them from showing. So sort of missed opportunities.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing with the LLM models is they're essentially gathering information from multiple sources, and they're using that then to merge into a single source answer. And I think what most people make the mistake of is they think, and this is probably like a historical mindset built around years of SEO practices, they think very much about their own website in exclusivity. They think, I want to show up within the search results for my own website because I want to drive traffic to it. Therefore, they spend all of their time optimizing their own domain to appear for those search queries. Now, what the LLMs are doing is they're looking for information in many different places. And then based upon primarily the frequency and placement of that information, they then, are assigning a confidence level to that content. And then that's what they're using then to develop these, multi-source answers. So really, like from an LLM and AI standpoint, we should be thinking about how can we influence our story and our messaging and our visibility and our content footprint in as many places as possible, so that when then the LLMs are using all of this source content and they're seeing your brand mentioned, obviously on your own website, but then on trusted sources, in directories, on social media, and like everything lines up, that's what gives them the ultimate, confidence. So some of the most cited sources for LLMs right now are, funnily enough, typically community and social sites. So we see a lot of presence from Quora and Reddit. Yeah. We equally see a lot of presence from LinkedIn and other
Medium as well. Yeah.
Mediums is definitely another one. But more and more, and you might experience this to yourself, especially if you're searching on mobile, even the short form video sites now are getting a lot of prominence. TikTok's showing up a bunch, Instagram, Reels are showing up a bunch there. So what you really want to do, and thankfully from a Google standpoint, you actually can see those sources very easily because they cite them. Literally go and again perform queries related to your business and see what those cited sources are. And a little bit like we spoke about with the barnacle strategy earlier, you actually want to get yourself onto those places in whatever way that you possibly can, because then you'll start to influence your presence and your prominence there.
Yeah. Totally. And also one of the things that I've experienced in the past, that if you have a website, let's say an e-commerce website, and you don't have the server-side tagging or server-side rendering on, you actually cannot, like LLMs cannot communicate or cannot access your website.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit more about this, because I really don't really understand it in a way. Like I understand that this is something preventing traffic or LLMs to actually, but like, why is that?
Well, it's also Google, themselves. And most of the LLMs are using the search engine indexes, for ultimately the source information, for what they ultimately display. So, ChatGPT uses Google a lot, also uses Bing. So if Google is struggling, then also the LLMs by inherent next steps would also be struggling as well. So yeah, what you are talking about is getting into the technical realms, which is really, really important. So when a website is rendered, the information is rendered into like HTML code. Now that code is essentially what the search engine bots are crawling and then extracting and then placing in their index. Now, a lot of the new technologies like JavaScript, could be React or any of the others, the way that they're rendered is from a database in the back end, and then they're basically rendered in the browser, not in the HTML code by default. That means that actually what is displayed on the page is not what Google is seeing. They see a different set of code, but the actual visual appearance of the website in the browser looks very, very different. It means that they have a hard job understanding and seeing the content that's there. So from a technical standpoint, and this is very technical, we want to then make sure that actually what is displayed within the HTML code is what is then ultimately displayed to the end user. And then when that happens, all of the information is there for the search engine to extract. And then because it's able to extract it, it should go into the index, all things permitting. And then that's then what the LLMs can then extract for their own results as well. Yeah.
Okay, so in my understanding, the HTML code is kind of like a blueprint of what's in the website in a way. But what prevents now websites or new websites that using new technologies such as JavaScript or React or all of this to have this in place?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's a technical setup on the back end, which may not affect like how users interact with the websites fundamentally, but it does affect how search engines interact with the websites as it stands right now. They're just not great at reading JavaScript. So yeah, it's basically a technical setup. Then the actual rendering of that goes into the actual server side itself, which means basically the code, and then from that it can be extracted. How that's done is much smarter things than I would be able to give you answers to. My technical team are the ones that handle all of that, but that's the basic premise of it. Yeah.
But if there is any easy way for anyone who's not technical to understand if they have the server side rendering on or not, without them being technical or without them reaching out to their coding or developers just to confirm?
Yeah, there is. So there's a bunch of like plugins for Google Chrome and like other browsers that basically turn JavaScript off. And then in turning JavaScript off within your browser, you'll then see what the actual search robots are seeing. And sometimes when you disable JavaScript using these plugins in the browser, you're basically displayed a blank page. And that essentially means that the content that you think is on your website and being accessed and crawled by search engines is actually just inaccessible. And that will tell you that you've got a problem there that needs to be addressed. And that's where you want to get in, obviously, expertise to help you fix and address those problems. Yeah.
Yep. 100%. Okay. Thank you for that. I know this is a little bit technical, but like also it was a little bit important to explain it from non-technical view to the audience.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're still on the topic of SEO. How can we increase visibility when it comes to search? Now, we started this conversation with the stat of 90% of search still happening on Google. And also you mentioned about that all the AI search is around 9-10% as per 2024 data. We don't have 2025 data. But a lot of business leaders, when it comes to thinking about AI search, they think about an opportunity to maximize or to try to be first into this new era. Is there anything that they can do that's not technical that can ensure their dominance when it comes to a ChatGPT kind of search, especially for much complicated businesses such as e-commerce? Like, I'll tell you a story. So I remember a founder one day shared with me, like, he's selling Hoka running shoes.
Yeah.
And he basically when he searched on where can I buy Hoka running shoes, to be appearing as one of the top 3 results that ChatGPT recommends to buy Hoka shoes, maybe in UAE or in Dubai.
Yeah.
How can brand achieve this without focusing on technical? Is there any kind of practice that they can do quickly to dominate this space?
Yes. I want to clarify some statistics before we start. So the latest data roughly is that in terms of traffic generated from search platforms, Google is by far and away still the most dominant.
Yeah.
Probably 70%, give or take, comes from Google and other traditional search platforms. Google, the vast majority of that, still the big player. But in terms of total search volume, when we account for all queries happening in all places, Google is only about 20%, give or take. I think in total, around 62% of current search activity, and I'll call it search activity because sometimes that includes, prompts on AI and more traditional searches, is happening on non-traditional search platforms. So that would include platforms like TikTok, Instagram, Amazon, YouTube, the LLM platforms, Reddit, Quora, and so on and so forth. So in short, by far the biggest dominant player in terms of like actual volume is Google, but then the rest of the pie is made up by relatively small little slices, but in many, many different places. So what does that mean in terms of approach? We should still have most of our eyes on Google, but we should equally have our eyes on those other search platforms that are influencing our users in that total search journey. And for different brands, that's going to be different places. But what we're typically seeing now, and I think you'll probably be testament to this, and maybe our listeners as well, the exposure very often that we now get to a brand before we make a buying decision, especially if it's a more considered purchase, we'll probably have had exposure to them in 3, 4, 5, maybe many different places before we make that buying decision, right? And with the exposure of content that we now have these days, with us being pretty much glued to our phones and our devices, we're being exposed to brands, in extremely high levels of frequency before we finally convert. So with that said, how do we influence LLMs? Because they are definitely part of the conversion cycle right now. And they're also an extremely influential part of the conversion cycle, because what we now see also in the data is, whilst like LLM prompt activity is still relatively low compared to Google, it has an extremely high level of influence. So the conversion rate of traffic that's sent by ChatGPT and Perplexity and all of these others, it converts like crazy. So they don't send much traffic, but when they do send traffic, the conversion rate is extremely high, because essentially they've done all of the work that the consumer would have done historically when browsing a website. They've done all of that before they send the traffic there. So whilst a smaller piece of the pie, getting back, it's a very important piece of the pie because it's very, very influential. So how do we go about influencing that? I'll maybe touch upon a couple of things. One would be what we can do on our website, and then secondly, what we can do away from our website. So on our website, I think what we need to think about now is, in relation to LLMs, typically how people interact with LLMs and what their prompt activity looks like versus a traditional search engine. So on LLMs, most people's queries or prompts are much more personalized, and they're typically much more descriptive and what we describe as being long tail, right? So people are asking for very specific recommendations related to their own use case. So let's stick with our performance marketing agency example. If someone was looking for performance marketing agencies on Google, they might just search something like performance marketing agency and then maybe some geographic modifier in Dubai, in the US, whatever that would be. Typically, that's what most of the query habits would be based around. On LLMs, people are then being much more specific and descriptive. They might say, well, I'm a direct-to-consumer e-commerce brand selling Hoka running shoes, and I want a performance marketing agency with experience within my sector. Please make a recommendation, right? Entirely different. So now, as content creators, we actually need to think much more about who is our audience persona and who can we serve as a business effectively. And then we need to start creating content that actually really matches to those personas and not just think about ourselves in the general category sense. So who do we serve? Okay, so now we want to perhaps be looking at creating content pages on our website for performance marketing for direct to consumer brands, performance marketing for travel companies, and all of those different areas where we've got expertise, so that then the LLMs can start to understand, right, Gamal's agency is specialist for this particular sector, so they can start to appear. This can very often be done to some extent programmatically, because you've probably got many different personas that you serve, right? And that could then mean that you need to have sort of multiple sort of sections or pages on your website that serve each one of those. So we kind of need to get with LLM, SEO, or GEO as it's being coined presently, may change. We actually need to get much more granular typically and make sure that all of those different personas are served. Then offsite, I think probably the main takeaway that I would give our listeners is we need to start to think about how we want to be referenced and known. Because really the way that LLMs work is they work based upon co-citations. So when they see your brand or my brand mentioned in the context for which we want to be known frequently, their confidence levels in us as being the answer to those particular terms increases. So for instance, for us at SEO Sherpa, whenever we get mentioned online, we are typically using the same blurb in all of those places. And it's something like SEO Sherpa is a global search award winning agency specialized in organic SEO, search everywhere optimization, digital PR, and technical SEO, the terms that we want to be referred to for XYZ brands. So now we're basically creating a storyline for the LLMs that SEO Sherpa should be recognized in the sense of these different topics and related to these different types of brands. So think about that from your own perspective and then create a standard blurb. So whenever you appear on podcasts or you get mentioned in the media, you give them that same blurb, and that then will be repeated consistently online. And that will help sort of reinforce the confidence levels that the LLMs then assign to you. And that's really classic PR in short. Yeah.
But what's really interesting to me within all of this, that the mindset itself out of digital marketing or SEO nowadays, it has to be shifted toward content creator. Like you have to think about yourself as a content creator in a way, your business, to be able to be cited within those LLMs or to have high visibility organically.
Yeah.
And this is something that you highlighted, but I believe it's so important and it's so overlooked. Like, because a lot of the people that I meet when it comes to SEO, they think more about that they are developers doing SEO.
Yeah.
And it's very rare to find someone or some company that actually understand the importance of the content. It's not something that has to be provided by the client, and if the client does not provide, we cannot do it, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's actually the heavy weight when it comes to SEO.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think it's probably one of the reasons why those companies that are doing really, really well in this early age of AI search are the ones that have actually been focusing less on traditional SEO and more on brand building, because they've been putting all of this time into not thinking about, well, how can I win a backlink for a specific keyword to a specific page? They've been thinking about how can I get exposure in front of my right target audience and get noticed and shown in the most prominent places online. Those are then the signals that these new LLMs have then adopted, and it means that they are now really performing well out of the gate in the AI search era, which is probably like a massive lesson for us as marketers. Is like, think less about what is tactically appropriate right now and think about what is the overall objective and outcome that we want to achieve, because that will stand the test of time when platform shifts happen, when search behaviors and consumer behaviors shift. We will have been really thinking about solving the objective at its core, not trying to tactically, trick and manipulate for currently what's working right now. And if you adopt that, you'll have longevity in your business. And when platforms change and algorithms change, you'll still do really, really well. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. And since now we're reaching the end of our session, I want to ask you a question about the new generation. I know in your agency, you have very smart people working with you. You have more than 60 SEO experts working with you, and you meet a lot of talent.
Yep.
So do you have maybe any advice or direction to people who are just starting and they want to approach SEO as their main career?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I would say first and foremost, what would make talent really attractive to us as a hiring agency, and therefore probably is a good indicator of value within the marketplace, is someone that's actually been there and practiced and executed themselves. So the advice I give to any SEO just starting out is go and learn the fundamentals. So go and take the trainings, watch the YouTube videos, read the blogs, follow the experts, but then action those learnings onto a side project of your own. So build a website, start a small e-commerce brand or a drop shipping company or something, but literally put your practices to work, because so much information can be availed in theory, but the true lessons come in actual practice when you're optimizing and building your sites yourself. So have a little toy project to play around with. And if you can then take that to a potential employer, or if you want to be a freelancer or even build an agency, take that to a prospective client and you've got proof that you've done it before, that of course is, it's a real big advantage to you. I would say the other thing is that you should think about building T-shaped expertise. So I think this concept of T-shaped probably came out of Google, but I could be wrong. If I've miscited you, Google, and it's actually someone else, please accept this as an apology. But you want to have really good, broad understanding of many different areas. So for SEO, let's say, or for search, SEO translates into content, but it also translates into conversion rate optimization. And you also need to understand how organic search intersections with paid search. If you've got a good understanding of a wide width of different topics, that's really good, because you can then better understand how all these fit together, but then have deep vertical expertise within one particular area. So that's your T, right? The breadth and then the depth in one area. Those people that do specialize tend to be extremely valuable in the marketplace. And I will add one more actually. If you can then have a depth of understanding in two areas, I'm not going to use a letter analogy. Maybe it look like an N. Anyway, I'm making this up on the spot. But if you can then intersection two deep areas of expertise that only you have, or very, very few other people have. So you're the technical SEO expert that really is, fantastic in conversion rate optimization. That intersection of skills for someone will be extremely valuable and extremely rare. And therefore, what you can command in the marketplace, what you're able to then execute, obviously the value of that significantly increases. So there'll be a few things.
I believe this is very useful. And also to have this kind of mindset of patience, that you're building something that's going to take years. If you want to build your own T-shape, this is not something that's going to be it's going to happen within 6 months or 1 year. You have to spend time building or cultivating those kind of skills. But 100%. I guess now, since the competition is higher, the specialized skills when it comes to how big is your T-shaped, or as you said, the N shape in a way, is going to be rewarded the most. Because now LLMs and AI is actually raising the bar of what is average or what is acceptable. So you have to go beyond by adding more expertise or more value to your users.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the experience component's really important, because AI and technology is going to fast improve the efficiency of execution, but AI doesn't have context or experience. All it is doing is pulling information from different places. It may have the ability to automate, but it doesn't have real human context and experience. So that is what you should look to build up, so that you can become a far more effective strategist who can put all of these different things together. And then, of course, use AI, use technology for execution. That's ultimately how you'll become most valuable.
100%. Any closing note for businesses that they want to improve their SEO or their organic visibility?
I would probably just really make everyone very mindful of that we're now not in a search engine optimization era, but as we like to call it at SEO Sherpa, a search everywhere optimization era. So think about everywhere search happens, and look to influence and be present for your target consumers in all of those places, because really search now is holistic. It's extremely messy. There's multiple touch points, and those people and brands that are doing the most effective job of appearing in as many of those influential places as possible are ultimately the ones that are going to win going forward. So yeah, have a think about that. Look for what those places are, and then do your best job to then, try and get seen, in those different platforms.
Awesome. And I'm going to attach at the description of this YouTube, because it's going to be live on YouTube, a link that you can actually reach to SEO Sherpa if you're looking to work with them. Yeah, I highly suggest to work with them. They are very smart people. James and his team, they are very capable. And yeah, thank you. Thank you, James. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reach for growth, reach for more. Performance marketing, hardcore. Tune in, listen